Hello friends, this is Vishnu Kumar here, and I'm here to deliver a session in the area of actuarial science. The subject which I'm going to focus on is CM1 Actuarial Mathematics. Before I start, please don't forget to subscribe and comment on my YouTube channel. Uh, Now, as I move on to the next slide, what is the aim of the CM1 Actuarial Mathematics? What are the coverage of this syllabus will be discussed in the coming slides. So, CM1 Actuarial Mathematics is designed as per the UK IFI curriculum of 2019. The aim of this subject is to provide a grounding in the areas of principles of modeling as applied to actuarial work. So what does exactly modeling means to in the area of actuarial science? It refers to some techniques used in insurance sectors, basically in all the domains. Let it be life, let it be general, let it be health, let it be pensions, let it be any sort of employment benefits. Actuarial modeling is widely used in these areas. So this accounts for probability of any events of a policyholder living or dead, and this also accounts for the cost of each event that presents to the company. Cost in terms of cost of maintaining the policies, or cost of uh, administering the each and every policies and deciding the amount or claim amount that is to be given to the policyholders. So based on such criteria, the actuarial team of every insurance company decide the premium rates for the policyholders for which they have to pay to the companies. In return, the company will pay back the claim amounts to them, considering the tenure, the interest rates, the fluctuating inflation rates, time value of money. So this is what the principles of modeling exactly applies in the areas of actuarial work. Now moving to the second point. It focuses particularly on deterministic models to generate value cash flows as well as those which are dependent on death, survival, or other uncertain risks. So, what is the exact syllabus coverage of CM1 mathematics? As per the pie diagram, which you can see, data and basics of modeling cover 10% of the syllabus, theory of interest rates cover 20%, equation of value and its applications cover 15%, single decrement models and multiple life models cover 10% each equally, and finally pricing and reserving covers 35% of the syllabus. So basically your focus and coverage will be little bit more in the areas of theory of interest rate, which is covering 20%, and pricing and reserving, which covers 35%. Whereas all other concepts are also equally important, as you have to strengthen your understanding the areas of life tables, the fluctuating interest rate like stochastic interest rate and fixed interest rates. So this entire 6 components forms the syllabus of core mathematics or CM1. Let's move to the next slide. So after the completion of this subject or this module, the candidate will be able to describe the basic principles of actuarial modeling, describe, interpret, and discuss the theories of theory on interest rates, the mathematical techniques used to model value cash flows, which are contingent on mortality and morbidity risks. So mortality is nothing but an event related to a death of a policyholder, and morbidity refers to an event related to the ill health situation of the policyholder. So these are any sort of risk factors that determine any insurance valuation. Based on the subject which are going to prepare, there will be exams conducted. So actual papers will consist of 2 exams as per the UK IFOI guidelines. In this case of actuarial mathematics, which I am going to deal with, this module will consist of 2 papers or 2 parts, you can say, the CM1 and CM2. The one is a regular 3 hours paper-based exam, and the other is a 1.5 hours computer-based exams having Excel or R calculations. So in the case of CM paper, your balance 1.5 hours exam will be done using Excel calculations. For your kind information, in the case of CS, which is statistics, core statistics, your 1.5 hours exam will be done using R programming, which is a machine learning program. Now moving on to the CM1 course, the first chapter which I'm going to take in this presentation or in this PPT is data analysis. So moving on to the subject chapter, what is exactly data analysis means to us? So let us look at the contents of this topic before I start. There are 4 contents. The first one is describe the possible aims of data analysis, which is descriptive, inferential, predictive. The second content will be describe the stages of conducting a data analysis to solve real world, or which you can say practical problems in a scientific manner, and tools suitable for each stage. Third, describe data sources and explain its characteristics, including extremely large data sets. Fourth, explain the meaning and value of reproducible research and describe the elements required to ensure a data analysis that is reproducible. So each and every content of this topic will be explained in detail in the coming slides as I move forward. So what is data analysis? It is nothing but information gathered in its raw state. Raw state in the sense it could be in any format. It could be in interview format. It could be in a questionnaire format. It could be a survey feedback format. So you will collect data based on different features, be it numerical observations, it can be absolute numerical values like having numbers, or relative numerical values, that is in terms of percentage. You could gather data in terms of categorical informations like whether they are male, female, or informations on whether he is educated, uneducated, which can help you determine the literacy path, or you can determine the status of an individual, like whether he is a graduate, or whether he is a working person, or whether he is a retired person. So these are the sort of information which you collect in a raw state from different sources. Okay, you can also collect information even from normal websites, from journals, from magazines, from newspapers, and so on. So whatever information you have collected in a universal format or in large format, you analyze it, you process it by first reading the data set, understanding it, and then you come up with a tabular set of information or a graphical information. So you come up with graph diagrams or tables explaining different combinations of features of what exactly your information is explaining to you. Once you have processed the data, once the data is being converted into a specific or a process format, you will use it for specific purpose. You might apply it in various areas. You can publish it in journals. You can share it with your clients or teammates, with whosoever you're working on any particular research work. So once again, I repeat it. What is data analysis is? Data is gathered in its raw state, which is in a pre-processed format. Then you analyze or process it into a set of information. Then use it for a specific purpose. Now, the 3 key forms of data analysis, which is known as EDA or exploratory data analysis, will also be covered in this section. So what are these 3 key forms are? One is descriptive, second is inferential, and the third is predictive. What is descriptive analysis? See, as managing raw data is difficult, it is impossible to draw meaningful conclusions from, particularly when the volume of data is large to work with. You might have a data set, or you might have information which is having thousands or 10,000s of observations, and each and every source of information described or shown cannot be analyzed in detail, as it will be a time-consuming process. Okay, so descriptive analysis solves this problem by presenting the raw data in a simple manner, more easily understood and interpreted by the user. So as I said, you will be using different tools to analyze the data in a very precise and a very easy format, so that it will be understandable even to a common man who has no knowledge in any English. So data summarization or presenting it in a format which highlights any patterns or trends. Patterns or trends means like you have different types of graph diagrams. You can say there will be a line chart, there will be a pie diagram, there will be some sort of curve diagram. Then you will have box plot, bar chart, and different types of graph diagrams which you can explain things. So some diagrams or some graph diagrams represents patterns or trends. Now, in the case of if you want to analyze the price of a property or any house which you have purchased in particular area, you will look at the trend or the pattern of the past property prices, and then based on a particular trend or pattern, you will decide that whether you want to buy or sell a particular property. So that is the best example of how descriptive analysis exactly works. Okay. The last but not the least, a limitation of descriptive analysis is that there are no specific conclusions drawn. Rather, it describes the data actually presented. Okay. So in short, descriptive analysis looks or refers to past data and not the future one, because you are drawing or you are coming up with some statistical tool like a table or some diagrams that represents the previous set of informations, which might not be same like the future set of informations which might come in the coming process, because ultimately there might be real-time informations, real-time data that might keep on changing, probably on monthly basis or on yearly basis or on 5-yearly basis or on even on hourly basis. Just like you have share market which that deals with share price, it is not fixed, it changes every minute, every seconds. So you cannot draw a conclusion of how exactly the share price is fluctuating in that particular day. So you cannot come to a future predictions. You can just draw some specific piece of information referring to the past data. So hence, descriptive analysis focuses only on inferences or observations which is being derived from the given past set of data. Now, in descriptive analysis, there are two key measures or parameters, and they are measure of central tendency, which is mean, median, and mode, and the dispersion, which is variance and standard deviation. The most common measurements of central tendency are the mean, the median, and the mode. Typical measurements of the dispersion are the standard deviation and ranges such as interquartile range. So this entire key 3 points will be discussed to you in the CS series, core statistics module, CS module. So this is a perfect example of how descriptive statistics exactly looks like. So on the left hand side, a raw data is given to you, which shows the age, gender, and favorite ice creams consumed by each and every individual. So age is a numerical data, gender is a categorical data which have male and female population, or male or female individuals, you can say, and favorite ice cream flavors is another, again, a categorical piece of information where you have different types of ice cream flavor like vanilla, chocolate, or strawberry. So wherever you get to see this NA in the fourth column indicates that missing observation, which means the data or informations are not available for that particular rows. Based on that table, a graph diagram or a pie diagram is being shown on the right hand side, which you can get to see here, where what is the percentage of vanilla ice cream consumed, what is the percentage of chocolate, and what is the percentage of strawberry and other flavors are consumed. And the mean and standard deviations are the summary information of this numerical data set, which is age, is being derived, because you can calculate mean and standard deviation only for numerical piece of information and not for the categorical one. And the further bar diagram is being denoted using the male and female components of the gender, which is a categorical data. This is how descriptive statistics in short looks like. Now, what is inferential statistics? This is second part, a second type of statistics. So, what does inferential statistics mean to us? Often it is not feasible or practical to collect data in respect of the whole population, particularly when the population is very large. Again, if you have a universal data, you cannot count or analyze each and every element of that whole population. For example, when conducting an opinion poll in a large country, it may not be cost effective to survey each and every citizen. Best example they have mentioned is the elections, which we conduct in every nation. So you'll have a huge set of demographics that may belong to different states, different regions. They may belong to urban areas or rural areas. So a practical solution to this problem is sampling of data, which means you pick up a portion of particular population, which is known as sample, and that sample will represent the wider population. So a practical solution to this problem is sampling of data, which is used to represent the wider population. The analysis of the data from the sample is called as inferential analysis. So this is an example of inferential analysis or inferential statistics, where the sample is drawn on a probability basis from a given set of population, and considering that the sample represents the population, you derive an inference. Now, what is predictive analysis? Predictive analysis extends the principle behind inferential analysis in order for the user to analyze past data and make predictions about future events. So it's like this is totally or exactly opposite of descriptive analysis. In descriptive analysis, it was not possible to derive future predictions. You were just sticking to the past data and coming up with graph or table diagrams, right? But in the case of predictive analysis, it is exactly the reverse. That is, you will be able to analyze the past or retrospective set of information and come up with a prospective set of information. So it achieves this by using an existing set of data with known attributes, or you can call it as features or variables also. It is known as a training set in order to discover potentially predictive relationships. So a training data means you pick up a random set of informations which will constitute 80% of your data set, name them as a training set, okay, come up with a relationship, that is, you will be given with Y observations and you will be given with X observations. So you will be deriving equations. That is like Y is equal to A plus BX, which we used to do in our schools and in our lower classes. So you will be deriving some kind of an algebraic equation, which you come up with some strong predictive relationship and frame an equation. Okay. Now coming to the third point, those relationships are tested using a different set of data known as a test set to assess the strength of those relationships. So whatever equations or whatever formulas you have derived from that training data, you will apply it on the balance part of the information of the data set, which is known as a test data or the test set. And you will see what is the strength of the equation which I have derived from the training data. Because test set normally helps you to analyze or examine what is the strength of the equations which you have come up with from the training data set. So that is why we divide the data set into training and testing. So as I said, in predictive analysis, the simplest form of this is linear regression, where the relationships between a scalar dependent variable and an explanatory or independent variable is assumed to be linear, and the training set is used to determine the slope and the intercept of the line. A practical example might be the relationship between a car's braking distance against speed. Now you can use a car's speed with time also. So What does this relationship exactly mean here? So if I say I want to go to a particular place, but I have to reach that particular place from say from A to B, and I have very less amount of time, but the distance is bit lengthy. So considering my time constraint and considering the speed of my car, if my time is less, I have to increase the speed. So this means my speed of the car depends on the time. So the time is explaining the speed at which I have to travel from one place to another. So here my speed is nothing but the dependent variable and the time represents the independent variable. Same is the case with relationship between distance and speed. The speed is my dependent variable and the distance covered will be my x variable. So the distance between two destinations explains the speed at which I have to travel. That is what we call as relationship or predictive analysis in short. So what is predictive analysis exactly will look like if I show it in an image format or any image form. Best example is the x and y coordinates shown in a graph where the y-axis is denoted by price in GBP and the x-axis is denoted by quantity in million barrels. Okay. So this is how my demand is exactly moving across. So my y is dependent on x. So my price will determine what will be the quantity demanded for a particular product. Or in this case, it is barrels. So some kind of import-export is been going on. That is why they have mentioned quantity in million barrels. So depending on the price only, I can demand a particular product. This is how the relationships is explained. Now this was my part 1 of data analysis. The topic is not yet finished. It is the second part is left to be explained. Before I end this session with the first part, again I repeat, please don't forget to subscribe and comment on this video. Thank you.